All right, everybody, welcome back to the #1 television program in the history of the entire universe. I am Brian Lee Durfee, author of The Forgetting Moon, The Blackest Heart, and The Lonesome Crown, all three books published by Simon & Schuster's Saga Press. Today I'm going to be reviewing Galaphile, book #1, I'm assuming, in the First Druids of Shannara series by Terry Brooks. Now, the Shannara series is an enormous classic epic fantasy series that spans some 40-odd books or more. I mean, I have them all down here on my shelf. I'll pan down through the library here and show you. That's part of my Shannara series, and then the other part is, it basically fills 2 shelves worth of books right there. And if you've followed my channel for any length of time, you know that The Sword of Shannara is one of my favorite novels of all time. In fact, this is the very first book I ever purchased with my own money as a kid, of my own volition, that got me interested in reading. And 100 pages into this book, I knew I wanted to be a writer, and that was when I was 13 years old when all this happened. And I did become a writer, wrote my own books of my own, and owe it all to The Sword of Shannara, the first ever book I read of my own volition. Now, if you want to watch a detailed review that I do of The Sword of Shannara or any of the other Shannara books, all you need to do is type in my last name, Durfee, into your YouTube search bar, and Shannara into your YouTube search bar, and dozens of book reviews will magically appear upon your television screen. But I do suggest you at least watch this one, because this is a very important book in my life. Oh, and I've met Terry Brooks a couple times, and he has signed my books. I'll show you this one. He signed my books every time he's met me, so got 3 or 4 signatures just in that book alone. Okay, so this book, this is what we came to talk about. Galaphile. I think I'm pronouncing that right. I have no idea. I'm thinking it's Galaphile. This is, we just found out a couple days ago. I am recording this in early March. I don't know exactly the day, maybe the 10th or the 11th. No, it's probably the 11th or the 12th. I'm recording this somewhere in March. This book just came out today. I got home from work. I spent 3 hours reading it. It's only 300 pages. It's a quick read, an easy read. And now I'm doing the review. But where I was headed was, this is, according to an announcement that Terry Brooks just made a few days ago, the last Shannara novel that he will write on his own. He will now go into retirement. And the publisher Del Rey Books has decided to have another writer take over the Shannara series, Terry Brooks being kind of like a mentor to that writer, sort of will kind of provide insight to that new writer, bounce story ideas off of the new writer. But he's announced his retirement from the Shannara series and from writing books all on his own. So, thanks to Terry Brooks for providing me personally with like 45 years or more of fantasy reading, following all of his books. I've bought every single one of his books in hardcover the day they come out. I read them the day they come out. It's just been one of the great joys in my life, the Shannara series. This being, I suppose, the last one written by Terry Brooks himself. So we will do this review in honor of the entire series. So let's talk about the cover first, because I love graphic design and cover illustration. I've always loved, 99% of the Shannara covers. This one's pretty good too. It's by an artist named Eva Eller, I believe. It's pretty cool. I like it. It's got a nice mystical feel to it with the little wizard down there. Now, there is a map in here of the 4 lands. So the Shannara series is set in these 4 lands. And just to describe the Four Lands. It's a post-apocalyptical Earth that has sort of devolved into a medieval sort of fantasy land where, you know, the apocalypse that happened early on in the Shannara series has left some poisons on the planet that sort of morphed humanity into different races like trolls and gnomes and elves and dwarves and etc., etc. So that's how we get all the magical creatures from myth and legend in these books. And now we're getting a story told by Galaphile. So this is kind of one of the prequels. This would fall into the prequel camp of Shannara books because, like I said, there's like 40 of them. And, you know, there's prequels, there's main story, there's sequels, there's so many. This would fall into the prequel, like one of the earlier in the timeline. It's about Galaphile, the Druid. We'll edit that out. The Druid, Galaphile, the Druid. And I'm assuming, since this book is about Galaphile, the Druid, and it's called The First Druids of Shannara, it's going to be a series about the First Druids of the Shannara series, which would include, you know, Galaphile, Cogline, Alanon, Brona, a whole bunch. So we might get in the future with these collaboration novels that Terry Brooks does. I don't think I mentioned the author that he's collaborating with. Her name is Delilah Dawson. I think that's right. Delilah Dawson, who I've also met at several Comic-Cons. But anyway, that's besides the point. Should remember her name. We'll edit the name, we'll edit the incorrect naming out and put the correct name in. I swear to God we will. But anyway, I'm assuming that this series is going to be co-written Terry Brooks and Delilah Dawson, and this one's Galaphile. We might get one about Brona the Druid or Alanon the Druid. I think it would be cool to do all the Druids, which I think is the idea behind it. I'm not sure. But anyway, this book starts out with Galaphile. He's 11 years old. He's alone. He's orphaned. He's a vagabond. He kind of takes up with this community of people. Now, Galaphile has elven blood in him. He becomes, one of the things about this novel, now this first Shannara novel was like 800 pages. One of the minor issues I have with this one is it's only 300 pages. And it's a story of this person's entire life, from when they were young to old. And it's only 300 pages, so it seems like the story is really racing through this guy's life, which I would have wished Terry Brooks would have taken more time and spent like 800 pages on it, like he did here, or maybe break it up into a trilogy of its own. But it isn't that. It is what it is. That's just a minor quibble. We follow Galaphile through his life. Starts out as 11 years old and skips to 16 years old and skips to 20 years old, all within the first 20, 30 pages. And it just keeps kind of going at that pace throughout the book. I mean, as a youngster, he becomes like buff. He likes to lift weights. He becomes big. He works out both his mind and body. He becomes a master mage. He falls in love. He suffers tragedies, etc., etc. He moves. I mean, this moves through his life really fast. It's just kind of like this guy Galaphile. He's kind of like Jewel, the character from Pulp Fiction. He just wanders the earth. It's really kind of like that, just a travelogue for the first, half of the book is like, Cain, he wanders the earth or whatever. Eventually his goal is to, and this is on the back jacket, so I'm not spoiling anything. This is directly from the back jacket. Galaphile's goal is he thinks that they're living in a dark time, which they are. This is the dark time of Shannara, and he wants to make life better for people, and he thinks that the way to do this is through the Druids and the nobility of the Druids, and they must have a place, a central place, a location. So he starts to construct the fortress, eventually to be known as Paranor. Now, Paranor is a big, huge castle that is central to all of the Shannara books, like literally all of them, have Paranor in it as this fortress that is either being constructed, that's in the middle of being used, that's burning to down. I mean, it has a storied and rich history, this fortress, as it goes through the generations of Shannara stories and lineage and all the characters that inhabit all the Shannara books. Paranor is literally the central spot. Now he's going to build it in this book, which he does with the help of another druid, Colgline, and the King of the Silver River, and some other things. But it's, you know, this is his goal. It's a noble goal. However, will this noble goal be corrupted by an ancient evil that, shall not be, like Voldemort, that shall not be mentioned? Is everything in the Shannara universe corrupted by this ancient evil? And that's kind of the plot of the story. It's a very linear. We start seeing, we meet the character as a young boy at 11, 16, 20. I mean, we just go through 300 pages. His life zooms by, and he does all of these things and meets all of these people, has all of these adventures and tragedies and betrayals and loves and all this stuff, meets all these friends, and it takes place, in my opinion, a little too quickly. I would have liked to have slowed down and enjoyed this character's life just a little bit more, with a little more descriptiveness and description. Kind of like the original Sword of Shannara, which is a big, thick book here. Anyway, so what do I think of Terry Brooks' supposed final novel that he writes by himself, that he does not co-write with other writers, particularly, starting out with Delilah Dawson? And I just hope that I've got that name right. I just hope. If not, we'll edit her correct name in over the top of my, clusterfuckery. Anyway, I'm going to give Terry Brooks' final book, Galaphile, the First Druids of Shannara, a solid 8 out of 10. Solid 8 out of 10. This is a nostalgia review for me. I love everything Shannara. If it's got Shannara, Shannara, however you pronounce that. I'm in love with it. Automatically, it's going to be a fantastic, fantastic reading experience for me. I enjoyed going back to this universe. Enjoyed learning about this character. Wish I could have learned a little bit more about him. But that's all right. Don't worry, Galaphile shows up in a lot of the other Shannara books down the road, which we get to know him there. So anyway, that's my review of Terry Brooks' newest